Good morning to a slightly damp sunrise safari. My name is Brent Smith. I have Wium on camera. We have Jamie and Dangerous Dave out on the other vehicle. And we have Geraldine and Louise in final control. So the lions were roaring almost all night last night. Different groups of lions. There were some in the north, which I presume to be the Salati males. And it sounds like the Birminghams might have split. Some of them stayed around that buffalo carcass. The others seemed to march east down Gowrie Main. So, as you can see, I don't know if you can actually see, but there's a fine little drizzle that's falling at the moment. There we go. So hopefully it doesn't get any harder and we're able to stay out as long as possible. So Jamie is heading down towards the south and west to see if she can find those lions that were making such a racket last night. And I'm heading to the northwest to start looking for the possibility of a Mvula or Karula again. So exciting stuff, possible multiple cats on property. Otherwise, there's always lots of wonderful and interesting things to have a look at. And don't forget, if you're wondering about what we're seeing out here, pop me an email on questions@wildearth.tv or use the hashtag SafariLIVE on Twitter. Well, let's get going and see what's out in this damp morning. Lady Luga has been up bright and early and she heard the pearl-spotted owlet on the Juma cam. And for those of you who don't know what that sounds like, it sounds something like this. Wonderfully pretty call that we do hear quite regularly out here on Juma and Arathusa. Julianne says, can you imagine hearing lions while you sleep all night? Well, Julianne, we do. And yes, it is absolutely awesome. It is one of those wonderful sounds. All the cacophony of nighttime sounds, the owlets, the lions, the hyena, the occasional leopard. We actually had a big herd of elephants feeding around our room last night. So the breaking of branches, the low rumbles, and the occasional squeal and trumpet of a chastised youngster. And it is amazing how at night you can hear so much more, and it is so much clearer because there's not so much stuff making a noise. But the nighttime animals that do make a noise tend to make quite a big one. A little diker in the road. I'm just turning off my lights. Pirate Jack says today is the day we find Karula. I hope you're correct there, Pirate Jack. I would be absolutely ecstatic. In the distance, I can just hear over the vehicle sound one of the last nocturnal callers, the fiery-necked nightjar. Deanna says she would love to be awakened by the sound of an elephant trumpet. Well, Well, it depends, Deanna. They do it at 3 a.m. very loud outside my window. I do feel the need sometimes to go, hey, I'm still sleeping. Can't you just wait an hour? Starry Night said this is my first morning adventure with SafariLIVE. Well, good to have you on board. Hopefully we can match your excitement with lots of animals. So let's go see Jamie so she can bid you a morning and tell you how her lion tracking is going.
And a very good morning to all of you across the world, and welcome to our chilly and somewhat damp sunrise safari. It is very definitely mizzling, a combination of mist and drizzle on both Dave and myself as we head along, and I'm sure Brent and Wium as well. So a chilly start to the morning, but what's so exciting, now that we're starting to go into winter and we've got these extended periods of darkness in which to drive, plus the cooler temperature, means that, good morning impalas, I'm coming past, sorry. There we go, and turn the lights back on. Means that we can expect all kinds of exciting nocturnal sightings in the future. I know that Brent had the white-tailed mongoose and a civet last night. It's a relatively unusual sighting for the WildEarth team. So exciting stuff in the air. Now, I'm sure Brent has updated you since you were chatting a bit about the sounds of night in the African bush, that we heard the lions and probably the Birmingham boys moving sort of eastwards along our southern boundary last night. It was hard to tell. They were quite far away, so I couldn't tell if they were moving straight along the road or if they were slightly further to the south of that. Either way, I'm going to go and check up and see where they've headed off to. I'm just dropping the lights as we drive past herds of impala. I'm sure, as you can imagine, if you were fast asleep in the darkness of the morning and somebody came past you and shone a bright light in their eyes, or in your eyes, you wouldn't be terribly impressed with them. I don't want to do the same thing to the impala. Sorry, boys. Good morning. Most of the animals enjoying a little bit of a lion, hiding out from the cooler temperatures and the drizzle of the morning. So yes, we heard the lions moving along our southern boundary, and I still want to solve the mystery as to where the nkahumas have gone. Haven't seen them in a little while, and nobody's seen them in a little while. Wonder where they've decided to move off to, if they've gone into Buffelshoek, maybe even into Manuleti, which they do occasionally go to. Both of those places are to the north of our boundary. Or if they've just been hiding out on Junior somewhere, because we haven't seen any tracks leaving the property, so it'll be interesting to know. Oh, rain's a little bit harder. It'd be very interesting to know where those lionesses have snuck off to. I'm sure you're all as curious as I am. The one thing about this weather is that it has grounded the vultures for a large part of the day. Because it is so cold, they can't find any of the hot air currents to give them that thermaling ability. They're spreading their wings and riding the rising air. I did see one or two moving about quarantine, and I've just seen one now that was fast asleep in the tree. Didn't want to shine the light on him, though, for too long. That might be that the nkahumas have a kill hidden up somewhere in the vegetation that we just haven't managed to locate yet. If they do, though, they've been very quiet about it. And I imagine that Brent also updated you about the elephants chasing things. Oh, darn it. Cheryl in California has said that she doesn't often enjoy creepy crawlies, but that she found the dung beetle sighting that we had yesterday absolutely fascinating. And Cheryl, I did as well. I thought it was so entertaining. For those of you who missed it, we watched a dung beetle from start to finish, from the point that he sort of had rolled his dung ball and had a female attached to it. We watched him roll it across the road, find an appropriate place in which to bury it, and proceed to put the entire dung ball, which was about the size of just smaller than a tennis ball, dig it below the surface. And the reason I'm sort of cross with myself this morning is I once again forgot the book that I meant to bring with a picture of a cross-section of what those dung balls look like. Nevertheless, it was hugely interesting and hugely educational to spend time sitting watching that. Again, good morning, impalas. Just to watch the way in which he went about this whole process of digging the dung ball underneath the surface of the soil. And the fact that one of our viewers picked up on that, he moved in a clockwise, he dug in a clockwise direction the whole time. And then just watching the female's behavior and trying to guess at what her role was in this whole deal. Hugely interesting. And it's moments like that that are very important in the bush. And Andrea, who's watching on YouTube, she said, wait a second, can these people see our chats? Yes, Andrea, we can see your chats. The awesome thing about that is you are welcome to say whatever you like, but you are also welcome to ask us questions, and you're welcome to make comments on whatever it is you're seeing. That's one of the big draw cards. You can think of it almost as if you are on the back of the vehicle with us, like you would be able to ask your guide a question in a real live safari. So please, Andrea, you are welcome to send through any questions or comments that you have to make. If you want to know where we are, for example, we are driving along at current on Gowrie, Maine, the southern boundary of our little section of 4 million hectares worth of unfenced wilderness area, a place that's remained as a conservation area for the last 100 or so years. The Sabi Sands, a little bit less than that, but nevertheless, animals existing as they have in the wild for that entire time. And we've got a little section of it known as Djuma and Arathusa Game Reserves in the Sabi Sands that we get to go along. And we've got a wide variety of animal characters to share their stories with you. Anything from lions to leopards. Our lovely resident female leopard, Karula, known as the Queen of Djuma, has 2 tiny little cubs. We haven't managed to see them properly yet. And in fact, I haven't managed to see them at all. But nevertheless, we know that they are out here somewhere. We're waiting for her, or waiting for them to be old enough to come out into the open. And then, of course, the other variety of anything from impala to elephants to cheetah to spotted hyenas, or are a possible sighting we could have.
I think I feel the need for gloves this morning, although most of you would consider it not too cold. It's 20 degrees Celsius, 68 Fahrenheit. But for us, soft bush babies, we think this is quite cold and uncomfortable, especially coupled with drizzle. I mean, drizzle is not something we really get too often. We normally have it bucketing down, or not at all. On a positive note, the cats are generally, if they are going to be moving, they're going to be moving on roads or big paths. They don't like to get their toes wet in the dew. Hopefully, one just decides to pop into the road in front of us. So Karula was lost just in here last night, in this little system just to the north of our boundary. So I'm just checking very carefully now, see if she crossed back into Djuma. I do have the feeling that, oh, elephants. Elephants in the mist. No gorillas, but just elephants. Now, ellies will love this weather. There we go. Big grey behemoths in the mist. Now, ellies will love this weather. It's not too hot, nice and cool. They can walk around feeding. Oh, nice herd. More coming across in front of us. Big herd. Lots of babies. Oh, look at that little one coming. I don't know if you guys picked that up on the mic. That there's a squadron of dung beetles flying in. Obviously, one of these eddies has made a deposit somewhere close by. I'm just putting on the front rain pieces that gets a little bit harder. Look at this, right next to a lovely herd of ellies in the mist. At least when we're in the mist and not moving, we don't get quite as wet, so I'm quite happy. So I'm just closing up all my cases, cameras and things. So Linda is wondering, during the winter months, how cold can we get? So Linda, in all the years I've been coming to and from the Sabi Sands Game Reserve, I've only ever seen frost once here. So that's obviously just below 0 degrees, but I'd say in the early morning, our average temperature is probably around, in the winter month, I'm just trying to work it out for you in Fahrenheit. Oh, but this drizzle is coming in fast and furiously. Oh, it sounds like...
Brent for Jamie.
Oh, I'll be with you in a sec. Standing by.
Brent, apparently 4 of those Birmingham's went southeast toward Victoria and Gari side. There's also 4 Wanmadora going north on close to Shabab Road.
Oh, that's good. Probably good luck. So there we go, update from Jamie. That there's tracks of one of the Birmingham boys heading towards into Juma. The other have disappeared further to the south, as these eddies are just disappearing. So there we go. We're not going to follow them off-road at the moment. Let's just go around.
Never mind, the tracks come back out onto Gari Lane.
Oh, not so good. That lion did a oop-de-loop, and he went back onto the southern edge of our traverse and is still moving east. So a huge SafariLIVE welcome to Ellen and Angela. Angela is 5 years old and staying up over bedtime to watch SafariLIVE. Well, Angela, I hope you're loving the elephants, which apparently you are. There we go. They're about to disappear into the bush, so we'll just watch their big, great grey bottoms. So this morning, you're going to notice Wium's hand come across the lens quite often. He just needs to wipe the lens to get some of the moisture off. So lots of food around for the ellies at the moment, and they'll be loving the fact that there's some grass to feed off. These guys look like they're not stopping feeding, they're on a mission. So Victoria in Murray would like to know how tall a baby elephant would be to a human. Well, a baby elephant under a year would probably come up just below my hip. So what's that? I'm 6'3", or nearly 6'4". How tall do you think that is, Vildy? My hip in feet.
1,000?
1,000 feet to my hip. So probably just over a meter, 1.2, 1.3 meters at the shoulder, of course. We'll let those ellies move off. They're moving into a particularly thick block. Also a block that is renowned for gremlins. So we don't want to have any gremlins jumping aboard and laying eggs. We're going to continue to the east. For those who new who might be wondering about gremlins, gremlins is a little joke we make when we do have signal breakup or technical difficulties. And Jamie did a long explanation on the life cycle of gremlins a few safaris ago when my vehicle was beset with gremlins. And just so you know, there's two types of gremlins. There's a technological gremlin that feeds off, what does it feed off, Wium? The one that messes with the signal.
Yeah, it feeds off the transmission.
It feeds off the transmissions and things between and up in the air. And then we have a mechanical gremlin, which obviously breaks the mechanical parts of the car and camera. So if you want to learn more about the life cycle of gremlins, go have a look at the SafariLIVE Facebook page, and there's a little clip about the life cycle of gremlins. Okay, so we are looking for Queen Kula, and quite often if she does go into Buffalo's Hook, she sort of meanders her way back towards the Buffalo's Hook waterhole. And also another old favorite hangout of Vula, who we saw on yesterday's sunset safari. And we're going to see what's happening in that area. And you notice my head pop off the side of the vehicle. I'm in search of the footprints of leopards at the moment. And I will also keep a lookout for lions and other creatures.
Look who we found in the middle of the road. I was busy chattering away to Dave about the tracks I was following east and that he'd gone off the road. And we encountered this gentleman fast asleep. And he is just so fast asleep that he is positively not moving. Look how dirty he is as well. This would be the lion that is responsible for the calls that we heard during the night. But my goodness, what a dirty lion he is. Didn't even lift his head as I drove along. He was so still, I barely spotted him. In fact, I didn't. Dave was quite surprised when I suddenly slammed on the brakes and looked at me as if to say, he actually said to me, "Didn't you see that?" I didn't. I was so busy tracking him, watching his tracks on the road and just thinking how fresh they looked. And I was saying to Dave, "Oh, they've gone off the road." Voila. That is just a lion sleeping off one belly full of buffalo. I wonder why he is so filthy. It looks like he's been lying in the stomach contents of the buffalo. You would think that by now, with so little that was left of that carcass, they would look a little bit cleaner. But he just looks positively bedraggled. Definitely not, he doesn't look happy, but I'm sure he's not nearly as bothered by the rain and the cold as we are. Let's just roll a little bit closer. Hello, boy. Oh, okay. All right. Good morning. You are awake, sort of. I'm sorry, did you have a rough night in the rain? Or are you just so full that you can't be bothered to go and find the rest of your coalition? Apparently, as I'm sure Brent gave you that update, 4 of the Birmingham boys went further to the southeast of our position, so into this property known as Little Gowrie. They wandered down in that direction towards the 3 Sticks females. They were there apparently, but he's decided to straggle. We did actually get a question yesterday about whether or not lions ever separate from the rest of the group and move about on their own. And this is a perfect example with male coalitions of them splitting up. They were all united around the buffalo carcass, but then have gone their separate ways for now. And patrolling, and they were definitely patrolling last night. That constant vocalization every sort of 5 or 10 minutes, calling to each other, contact calling to each other, but also calling to the rest of the lions in the area. And Penelope saying, don't you just hate it when you're driving along and there's a lion roadblock? I can think of worse ways to start my day. How do you feel, Dave? I feel as though that's a fairly reasonable way to start. But Penelope, I get exactly where you're coming from. Perhaps my morning traffic jam is slightly different to most other people in the world. All I can think of is that poor gentleman at the Birmingham Boy sighting. When was that? Was it yesterday? No, it was the day before that, when we had them walking down the middle of the main road, and there was some poor gentleman in his white minibus, and all he wanted to do was get to somewhere else. He obviously had a vehicle full of guests that he was transferring, and he had to cruise behind the lions as they slowly padded down the road. I say poor gentleman, but I mean, it's a game reserve, and there are lions in the road. It doesn't get better than that as a start to the morning, in my opinion. Doesn't he just make for the most bedraggled picture you have ever seen? I just want to call this in on the Game Drive channel. I've just realised that I haven't done this. Morning stations, 1 Medoda Ngala, static on Gowrie Main Junction, Weaver's Nest. Oh, big stretch. What I am going to do at some point, I noticed there's a vehicle that's been coming down the road towards us. We will reposition just so that we're not sitting right in the middle of the main road. But for now, this is our best view. That actually looks like a really comfortable patch of sand, though. It's going to be... The Birmingham boys have been through the wars recently, whether it's been from fighting other male lions or whether it is from fighting internally. Either way, Scrapper's looking particularly thin, and Birmingham boy number 2, I believe, was the one that was limping very stiffly. Jennifer was wondering if perhaps this could be one of the injured lions. Could well be, Jennifer. None of the injured or thin-looking lions, so Scrapper, to me look like they are too serious in any kind of serious bother. That limp that the one Birmingham boy has, whilst it looks, whenever he gets up and it's a bit stiff, it looks fairly serious. It will heal up, I think, relatively quickly. Might every now and again favour whatever leg is injured. but it's not going to be something that reduces their chance of survival in any way. Jennifer, it could be. I'm having trouble identifying which particular individual this is, just due to the fact that he is very much covered in stomach contents. That's the brownie muck that is all over his mane and his face. They obviously made sure that they tucked into the last part of that buffalo carcass before they left it, which is unusual for the Birmingham boys. They very often are so successful hunting-wise that they very commonly leave half-finished carcasses. But they made short work of that buffalo and her calf. I think that they were particularly hungry-looking. Hello, boy. Is this Birmingham boy number 3? I'm not entirely sure. I'm having trouble with him. He just looks so scruffy. Might even be blondie, actually, beneath all that muck. Tammy and many others have suggested that perhaps he looks as though he's had something of a raucous night out and is now feeling the after effects of that. I agree with you. He does look reluctant to lift his head and even more reluctant to open his eyes. Even when he has lifted his head, he's sort of looked blearily at us. That being said, I mean, we have no idea what went on last night. I'm fairly certain that there wasn't any kind of confrontation between the lions of different coalitions. I think that they were just moving fairly constantly, and that he took a slightly different direction to the others, just judging by all of the vocalizations that we heard. And I suppose, you know, when you have a giant meal, the last thing you feel like doing is going for an incredibly long walk afterwards. I suppose that might also factor in. His belly is very, very round. I'm glad to see that they have managed to have a proper meal. Hello, boy. If we're really lucky, the other Birmingham boys might call to him, stretching out his foot, and he might call back to them. Oh, so exhausted. Such a long night. People underestimate the amount of energy that male lions have to utilize in their day-to-day life. Now, he lifted his head in response to something, and it was not in response to us. And Natasha in Ontario was wondering, how far can a lion see or hear? And I don't know whether or not he lifted his head in response to the calls of other lions. I don't think so, though, because I think he would have been more alert to it. So Natasha, he could easily hear the calls of his brothers up to about 10 odd kilometers away, so just over 5 miles away, if not more, depending. It very much depends on the atmospheric conditions at the time. So the colder it is, the further the noise travels, and then the amount of moisture in the air will also affect it. And of course, as you know, we are definitely not lacking moisture in the air at the moment. So that will determine exactly how far away he can hear and what he can hear, but certainly his hearing far more effective than yours or mine. His eyesight, on the other hand, the eyesight is very much attuned to movement. So whilst I wouldn't describe it as bad, it is not as strong as their ears or their sense of smell. They hunt as a combination, but as a predator, eyesight is still of vital importance. Now, his night vision is almost as good as we can see during the day, except not in color. But his daytime vision is very much attuned to movement. which is why, one of the reasons why they always tell you, if you ever encounter a lion in the bush, you do not run. Even if he is upset to see you and making ferocious growly sounds, you still never turn on your heel and run away from him, because instantly that triggers a response to... Oh. The Siberia Zoomy would like to know if this is that disgruntled look, if this is what Brent looks like after a night of partying. I couldn't possibly comment, Siberia Zoomy. I don't think that I would be forgiven for it. Certainly the hair is about the right length, let's say that, but he has yet to come home at any point covered in buffalo stomach contents, for which I am exceptionally grateful. And speaking of Brent and not being covered in buffalo stomach contents, let's find out how his morning is going.
So, in our search of leopards, we haven't even found a track, but I've just spotted some more ellies up ahead, or an ellie at least for now. We'll see if there's a few more shortly. There it is. Got a grey dot over there.
Police stations, there's a report of 2 other Madura Nyala around Twin Downs Junction, Gowrie, Maine. I have one here on Weaver's Nest Junction.
I'll make my way that side, thank you.
Looks like young bull. Sorry, I was just listening to the radio there. And that doesn't mean there isn't a breeding herd around as well. Could be hanging on the peripheries. I think I see more in the trees. Hello, wavy funts. Oh, there is some little, it is a nice little herd. There's a young bull on the edge. Hello, ellies. Granny Billy Joe would like to know, do elephants seem testier in the cold or in the rain? Not really. I think they're just elephants, as you can see, completely relaxed, ignoring us, feeding away. Oh yes, shake your head. Just keeping quiet for a few seconds. So, a few days ago, and just before that as well, Jamie and I have both seen a young elephant that's got, looks like an abscess on its trunk. And Matthew in Michigan's wondering, do you have any more information on that? Well, Matthew, I had a closer look at the photograph I took, and I think it could be from an injury, from a sharp stick, or something that's protruded in there. But very difficult to say, as it has sort of exploded and it is open. Let's just go. I want to have a quick look at this young bull. Hello, big boy. Not quite massive yet, but definitely over 20. Hello, mister. That's it, after the nice green grass. There's another clumby of Intlov on Cheetah Cut Line, just to the south of Bafosokari Cut Line. So Merkel Legend would like to know how tall adult elephants can get. So they can get very tall, and there are some individuals that are over 4 meters at the shoulder. But on average, for a male, probably around 3 meters at the shoulder, and a female is probably a bit shorter. So in I'm trying to think now. So in this area, you're probably looking at between 4 and 3 meters on a male. And females probably about 2.8 meters, 9 feet. So just a bit shorter at the shoulder. Off he goes. And this guy's probably close, just over 3 meters in the shoulder, I would say. So not quite big. He's probably still got a little bit of growing to do. Deborah, the armchair traveller, says she's so happy they've got grass to eat after that really dry weather, and they're definitely taking advantage of it. So, of course, there's not going to be nearly as much grass as normal. We're right at the end of our growing season, so all the animals better take advantage now. It's still going to be a tough, dry season, but at least there's water in the dams, and the trees will make a quick recovery as well. So hopefully there will be enough food around for all the animals come October. Let's go have a look what the rest of the herd is up to. Whether they've scuffled off. I was going to look at this big boy. Congregation. Oh, it's amazing how these big animals, you just go away for a second and a spot that was inhabited by 4 great grey behemoths is gone. I can hear them actually feeding away, but as Sammy on YouTube is wondering what's the oldest an elephant can get, Sammy, they can get to about 65 years old, but the biggest thing with them is that they lose their teeth, and they have sort of a big single molar, and when they get to a certain age, they go onto their last set of teeth. They normally get that last set of teeth at around probably early 40s. Some elephants have been known to live as long as up to about 65 years old, but most of them not that long. There we go. Here's a nice little diagram of an elephant's tooth. So you can see. Now, these come in a circular motion up through the jaw. And that's quite an old tooth. You can see how dark and stained it is from vegetable matter and how it's been really worn down, so it's not that high. So, when looking at fossils of elephants, that is often the most common thing found is fossilized elephant teeth. I actually have a fossilized elephant tooth that I found in the bush before, in Zululand, but it is incredible that. I'm just going to see if I've got a better looking tooth. This little drizzle doesn't help technology. Let me give it a quick wipe. Looks like it might be clearing a little bit. We might lose a bit of that drizzle. Oh, did you hear that, Jim? Mm-hmm. I thought I heard an alarm call there, so we're just going to keep quiet for a second and listen. Nope, nothing else. So we're going to continue our search for other creatures and hopefully the Queen of Djuma. While we do that, let's jump back to Jamie, who's still with that gorgeous but slightly unimpressed male lion.
Unimpressed and very full is how I would describe our particular male lion. Ooh, stretch. I love the way they stretch like that. Now, just to update you, there are 2 more Birmingham boys a little bit further to the east of us, around Twin Dams Road. I just paid them a quick visit to check the sighting out. There are 3 vehicles there for now. So once they move off and continue on with their morning game drive, we will make an approach to the other 2 as well. There could even be more lions around Djuma, for all we know. The other 2 Birmingham boys could well be here. Hard to tell exactly, with tracks crisscrossing all over the place. Just look at the size of that front paw. He's presented us with such a perfect view of it. You can see how large the toes are compared to a female lion or a lioness. It's not just the size difference, it's actually the proportion of the toes to the back pad, which also gives away a male lion's tracks. And what we will do when we have a chance is we will find a nice, perfect lion track to show you. You can see them where they've all walked along this road. I've just changed position for now to allow some of the other game drive vehicles to have a nice view of his head. His very dirty head, but his head nevertheless. Look at all the flies gathering around his belly. Now, looking at his somewhat rotund belly, Nature is Beautiful was wondering, don't they usually pant a bit faster when they have such full stomachs? And they do usually, but that is more or less during the hotter times of the day. He's not as full as he would have been last night, so already that digestion process starting to slow down a little bit. And the stomach not pushing as high up into his diaphragm, so restricting his lung capacity as well. But I think it's just because it's a bit cold and that he's had a couple of hours free from eating, that he's no longer panting quite so fast and just breathing normally. The temperatures have dropped considerably over the last few days. We're starting to feel the first chills of autumn. Although looking now, after starting off our morning in drizzly rain, the sun is starting to, or the sky is starting to lighten. And the clouds are blowing away, and the weather is clearing. We'll have some sun soon, and then Nature is Beautiful. He'll probably start panting a little bit more. And to complete your sort of sensory update, he looks incredibly dirty. Megan was wondering, does he smell like stomach contents? Is he a particularly smelly lion? Now, Megan, fortunately, with all of the dust that's blown up over the last few days, I am completely incapable of smelling anything. My nose is very blocked on this rainy morning. I honestly think it was from all that wind blowing about over, particularly that very stormy night. My nose has been suffering ever since. Dave, is he smelly? No. I think also the rain, Megan, I think the rain has put a dampener on the smell. But as soon as it starts to heat up a little bit and this rain has stopped, he will probably start to exude a certain scent. With a stomach full of buffalo contents as well, you'll also probably find that the odd digestive gas might escape him every now and again. Morning. How's it? And that might also add to the general aroma of the vicinity. So far, so good. Been relatively lucky. Robin is saying that she finds it interesting that he would lie down in the road and not in the grass. Robin, I think, to be completely honest, I think it's more comfortable for him. First of all, it's just been graded, so the dirt is loose. Sorry, hold on 1 second. Just want to chat to Mike. Okay, Brent is on it. I just need to update them on the Game Drive channel. Brent's just chattering away. I need to try and update Mike on what's happening. Mike, Aubrey's pulled out of the sightings and yours is on his way. We've just been joined by an Elephant Plains vehicle, but I'll let you know as soon as they move out of the sighting. You can come in. Here we go. That's sorted for now. Copy that, George. No problem. So yes, fortunately, this morning I shall be protected from the pungent odors of the lion. I do think, however, he's going to be a particularly smelly individual if we were to get up close and personal with him. It's such a beautiful view of his foot. And you can see so clearly the 3 lobes at the back of the foot that we always talk about. And then that callus around his heel. Hello. Oh, my goodness, look at you. Just look at him. He looks like something out of, I don't know. Such a big yawn. Is he thinking about getting up, or does he just want to be on his back? Oh, we were sorry. Before I go back to chatting about his paws, I was actually talking about why he's lying in the middle of the road. And apart from the fact, I was answering Robin's question, apart from the fact that the soil is nice and loose and soft for him to rest upon, there's also, the grass is also damp, whereas the road is not quite as damp. So I think that's one of the reasons why he's chosen to lie in the road, although lions pretty much are fairly not bothered about where they decide to settle. Shame boy, got a bit of a fright. Oh, look at that. I think he might go towards the other sighting at Twin Dams. There we go, it is number 2 with that limp. Shame boy, definitely favoring his right front paw. He's got a considerable limp. Oh, have a good shake. Get rid of some of that dirt. And Carolyn, you were wondering about that callus on the back, behind the back pad of his front foot. And you were wondering what that is. It's basically his heel. So it's a callus for when he lies down. Is he going to go back and lie down? Yes, boy, keep coming. Keep coming. No, don't go that way. Please don't go towards the other lion sighting, because then we're going to have to leave you. Come lie back on our side. Just reposition quickly. Go ahead, yours. He's just going to go mobile east to join the others. I'm just going to let yours go ahead of us, since we've had a bit of a morning to spend with him and there's not that much space. Yes, that's a good boy. Go that way. Keep going that way. Well done, good boy. Oh, he's going to rub his cheek and then he's going to urine scent mark. You'll probably see him scratching his back feet along that as well. There we go, spraying backwards into the guarri bush. Isn't he magnificent in his own way? Morning. Look at that, walking right past the vehicle. Imagine being the guest in the back there. He's definitely on his way to join the rest of them. Go ahead. I think that at that point we will probably have to temporarily leave the sighting before rejoining at a later stage, just because we had a bit of a surprise visit from one of the other vehicles. Go ahead, yours. I think that, go for it. It's fine. We are, but we won't, don't worry, we'll keep you out. Here we go. We'll let the other vehicles go ahead of us. This is always one of the things about having a sighting of lions on a main road like this, is that absolutely everyone, this falls within essentially everyone's traverse area, and everybody wants to see a male lion walking down the road. That's one of those things. Mike, this one daughter is now mobile east towards the Twin Dam sighting. I'll try and get an idea as to the lineup there. Here we go. We'll stick to the side of him for now, watch him walk. You can see how that limp has eased up now that he's been walking a little bit. It's definitely worse when he first gets up, a bit stiff, and then it eases as he starts to move. He's still favoring it. I can't work out exactly where that injury is or what has caused it. His ankle seems a bit swollen, and I think maybe there's the possibility of a break. Let's just go around this vehicle quickly. Nemo is watching his limp and is wondering if it's not more his shoulder than it is his foot or his ankle. Let's just see if we can. I'm going to go ahead of him and I'm going to see if I can get a view of that before we get stuck behind the other vehicles at another sighting. He looks amazing with that. Whoopsie. He does look incredible with that mane all covered in muck. And you could be right, Nemo. Let's try and look at the way that he's going to walk down towards us. He's stopped to have a sniff, probably of the scent marking from the rest of the coalition. I don't know if it's my imagination that his ankle looks a bit more swollen than normal. Doesn't it look a little bit like it's bulging around just where that callus is that Carol was asking about? Oh, that looked a bit sore. And I mean, that kind of injury could even have come from a hunting accident. So whilst attempting to hunt buffalo, oh, lions in the mist. Doesn't get better than this. Come on, Dave, use your weight. Need to roll the vehicle back. Here we go. I'll duck my head down. Okay, I'm going to let him come past us. It's amazing. That half dirty mane, half clean mane. Looking up to go and join the other two. Now there are 3 vehicles at... There are 3 vehicles at the other sighting, which means that we're going to have to leave him once he reaches that point. As we watch him retreat down, I don't think that we're going to have to wait long before we go back into that sighting. I don't think the vehicles are going to be staying there for too long. So we should have them all to ourselves very soon. There you go. He's going to wander off down the road. I'm going to pull out of the sighting for now, just because it's getting very close to being one conflated combination. There's 3 vehicles at Twin Dams. There's another vehicle approaching. We're going to leave them be for now. And we'll let yours go ahead of us. I'm just going to pop us back on the road so we can watch him wander off. Here we go, watch him wandering down the road. Doug in Arizona was wondering a little bit about whether or not he might be temporarily from the rest of his coalition because of his limp. There you can see where the other vehicles are. That's where the rest of the Birmingham boys are, or at least 2 of the rest of the Birmingham boys are. He's looking to find them. Doug, possibly, might not have been able to keep up with the pace that they set. But male lions do that when moving about as a group. Some of them might move further ahead. One might decide, actually, I'd quite like a nap just about now, and lie down and let the others get ahead of him. So at the moment, he's trying to relocate, probably just through scent and through sight alone. Maybe gauging it off where he heard them calling from before. You can see his indecision in a way as to which way he decides to go. He's just trying to make sure he doesn't miss them. And this is actually a perfect view for us to watch him wander down the road and back towards the other 2. Now, as I said, I'm fairly certain that once he gets there, the three of them will stay there. They'll probably could well spend the rest of the day sleeping there. Every now and again, there's a hint of blue sky, which means the temperatures are going to go back up again. We'll probably find that they'll find themselves some shade and park off there. So although we can't follow him into the sighting now, we will be able to rejoin at a later stage. I agree. James Richards took the thought out of my mouth. James Richards has said that he looks a little bit like Harvey Dent this morning with his half dark face and half clean face. It's exactly what I was thinking about. Harvey Dent, of course, being Two-Face in Batman, for those of you who maybe didn't get the reference. It's exactly what he looked like. Mate, I hope you guys got some extraordinary screenshots of him walking down the road towards us. Looks like is he going to go to the south or is he going to go to the north? Apparently, somebody has said that there are two other Birmingham boys a bit further to the south of where he is, so he could go either way. Will he choose to go left or will he choose to go right? For us, of course, left is better, but it's entirely up to him where he decides to go. Left is on our traverse area, right is not. Absolutely brilliant idea from James Richard. James Richard would like to go back to the spot where he was lying and have a look at the mark that he left. Oh. I thought I heard one of them calling, but I think it's a false alarm. Sorry, just listening to the Game Drive channel. As you can imagine, a sighting like this requires a certain degree of coordination amongst the guides. I just need to listen carefully as to who would like to approach. Cool. Right, James, let's go back and have a look at the track. And we'll make our way back towards that sighting once again when everybody's moved off. We tend to find that people, surprisingly, get bored with sleeping lions very quickly. I don't, so I'm happy to wait for our opportunity to go and see them. And you never know what's going to happen. Sleeping lions can go from sleeping to being very awake lions very quickly. I did see Brent surveying the sighting from above. He was on the other side of the hill, watching what was happening. He's very kindly sort of helped to take over coordinating the sighting so that I can talk to you and not have to try and get people into the sighting at the same time. Right, a couple of things actually that might be interesting to check. First of all, is it visible in his track that he's limping? Go ahead, yours. Copy that, thanks, yours. I'm just going back to have a look at his tracks. There we go, so we've got the scuffed patch of dirt here. Now that is from where he stopped and scraped his feet against the dirt and sprayed urine. I'm not sure if it was him or if it was one of the other males. I didn't observe exactly whether or not this was the exact position, but that is definitely lying. You can actually even see, if you look sort of, I don't really want to get out right now, just in case there are other Birmingham boys and there are lots of vehicles around. But if you have a look sort of roughly around the top right of that track, you can almost see the hock mark of his foot. So the extended part of the ankle. So that is where he stopped and scraped. Just trying to have a look at his tracks now. I don't see any visible signs that that limp is showing in his tracks, but it's difficult to tell because at least 3 of them have walked down this road. So their tracks are all meshed together. My expectation would be that there is a slight drag to the front right foot. You might even see a bit of dirt dragged a bit further forward or flicked a bit further forward by the toes. But it's so difficult to tell which tracks are his in this particular respect. And this is where when I said to you, that looked sore, if we have a look a little bit further to the right, where he came down from the slope, a little bit further, Dave, to the right here, where that strange patch of soil is. Keep going, up a little bit, keep going to the right. Perfect, thank you. There, where his tracks came down, that's where I said, that looked like a sore step. He put most of his weight down on his right front as he came down the hill a little bit. But I can't see, all I can really see is that he twisted his track ever so slightly in the dirt. But difficult to gauge exactly how clear that limp will be in the track in future. It's a pleasure, James. One last thing that we have to do is just go back to where we had him lying down, since that is what I promised to do. This isn't where he was lying. This is just where he was walking. So let's just go back there quickly so we can have a look at that track. Dodge the millipedes as we go. They're all out rejoicing in the moisture. Hopefully none of the vehicles have come and driven over where he was lying down. I'm not sure. We might get lucky. This is exactly what we love to do, and James Richards' suggestion was a really good one, because coming back and looking at a track where you know exactly what happened is the best way to learn to track. So he was lying just off here. We can actually almost see some of the marks on the ground from where he's left stomach contents. A bit further down, Dave. There we go. And a bit further to the right, sort of in between those tire tracks. Up a little bit and right a little bit. If I can't quite reach there. That's that discolored spot right next to the tire track. That is where he was lying. So they have been driven over ever so slightly, but James is right. This is the best way to learn to track. It's not that clear because the sun is not out, so it's not catching it at the right angle. It's not all that clear for us to see, but at least you'll know in future what it looks like when a lion is sleeping. You can see the discoloration from where he was lying and where he imparted the buffalo's stomach contents upon the soil. And I've stopped now because I'm trying to just double check and see if I can't see exactly which tracks are his and if I can see evidence of the limp. But it doesn't look all that clear. Let's just try one loop. Try and get the light a little bit better for us. But I think it's going to be tricky in these kind of conditions. Oh, goodness, much like driving Wendy at the moment. I'm not a completely useless driver, I promise. Wendy's stalling for all of us. She's very lacking in power. There, actually, that's nice, and that's a bit clearer. You can see where he was lying, right in between the vehicle tracks. Where the grass just ends there. That is where he was lying. You can see the flattened part. There we go. Perfect. This angle is much better. Sorry, Dave. This is a much easier angle. Okay. Wonderful. Well, I'm going to move on, but not too far. I'm going to wait for my chance to go into that sighting with the lions. While I do that, I wonder how Brent's morning is going. Let's find out how things look from a different angle.
So we've got a juvenile bateleur prepping and preening, trying to get rid of some of that moisture, which looks like it has stopped for a while, but it is definitely coming through in waves, this light drizzle. Mike, you can keep moving. I've just got a bateleur here. Here we go. You can see there. Now it takes a juvenile bateleur about 8 years to get its adult coloration. So I'm going to see if we can sneak a bit closer. Sometimes these young guys let us get really close to them. Oh no, roll car. No dear. Oh, there we go. It did roll just far enough. There we go. You can see he's starting to get the coloration on his beak and on his feet. Watching us through the gap. I'm going to try sneak an inch further forward. So, Lucy in Indiana asked to find some birds. She's got 199 on her bird list. And Lucy, if you've got 199, I'm pretty sure the bateleur is one of the ones you've got already. But we will definitely try and find an obscure little bird for you to spot on the safari. Hello. Watching us quite intently there. And you can just see that big talon sticking over the branch in the bottom right. You can see his big toe there. Now, bateleurs are a type of snake eagle. Oh, he's tired. It's been a long night sitting in the rain. Although they have a very different feeding strategy to the other snake eagle species. They are expert scavengers. They will hunt for themselves, but they are often the first bird to find a carcass. And vultures will even watch, and if they see a bateleur drop down to the ground, they will almost always come investigate. And of course, this cold, another yawn, overcast weather, it's not great for vultures, and we haven't been seeing too many of them. They're unable to ride those thermals up high. Nice bit of preening going on. Can hear the rest of the birds waking up. Pirate Jack says, this is awesome. Can we find him a black eagle? They used to be his high school mascot. Unfortunately, no black eagles in the Sabi Sands. They prefer mountainous areas. They need cliffs for nesting. So we're not going to see any on the live safaris, unfortunately, unless there's a very confused and lost one. Not enough big mountains or koppies or little hills in this part of the world. So, bye-bye, bateleur.
Can't wait like this. Section, give me an update. I saw the one that Jamie had.
Sorry, just listening to the radio.
Otherwise, I'm going back north. Will you give me maybe if they start moving a little bit north, will you tell me? Okay, I'll do that. Because I had someone said there's somewhere also in the area now. No, I'm first somewhere far on the Gari. There's some other gala Gari the way that guy's cooking.
Sorry, just getting an update there. So we're going to continue our search for leopards. So what we're doing is we've checked this northern boundary, the eastern boundary, and now we're going to start zigzagging through the center of Djuma, hoping to find some fresh tracks on top of the rain. James, Richard, and Nature is Beautiful would love to see the Anderson male. Has he been seen recently? Anderson male doesn't quite extend this far where we're checking now. His territorial boundary is in Arathusa for the moment, but as far as I know, he's down south on Londolozi, so he hasn't been seen in a while. Robin in Maryland says she thought when an eagle opens his beak like that, he's not only yawning but also moving food from his crop through to his belly. That's a slightly different movement, Robin. They sort of will do a very similar thing, but they'll keep that mouth open and sort of and try and move that food from their crop down into their gullet. But so that time, I think he was just having a yawn. He was depleted of oxygen. Hoping, this is one of Karula's favorite hunting areas. He's hoping to see a track or hear an alarm call. So, and welcome to Sensational TKO, who would like to know, is this happening now? It is. We are live from the African bush on Djuma Private Game Reserve, and so far this morning we found elephants and lions. I'm in search of leopards at the moment, but we'll see what else is about there. So don't go anywhere, and enjoy the live safari. But Jamie has found a feathered friend for you guys to look at, so let's go see what it is.
Right up until that exact moment, there was a kingfisher sitting on the branch. Unfortunately, it flew away as we were linking. It was one very bedraggled-looking brown-headed kingfisher. I actually got really excited because I thought it was a grey-headed. Let's see if I can try and find it again for you. And try not to do what Scott did the last time he tried to show everyone a bird, which was accidentally drive into a marula tree. It was a very big marula tree as well. Where'd it go? Oh, I'm sorry. It has flown away, and I think it has flown quite far away. Oh well, you win some, you lose. A little bit of signal break up there, so we won't that road. I can hear the dwarf mongoose calling. Let's see if we can't spot them. My suspicion is that they're on the other side of the drainage line in the termite mound. I'm just listening to the game drive channels again. Perfect. Okay, I'm just making sure that we can get back into that Birmingham Boy sighting. See if we can't find these dwarf mongoose. I can hear them. All gone quiet. Oh well. It is the joy of a live safari, that things don't always stick around when you want them to. I'm just trying to see if I can't find them. Now, we spoke a little bit about vultures, and hopefully my signal will hold up for us to continue going straight. But Maggie in Western Australia has been listening carefully to our comments about vultures thermaling and the fact that in this cold, damp weather, they cannot, or they have to wait for quite a long time before there's warm air rising that allows them to thermal. And Maggie was wondering then, how do they find enough food in winter? Well, Maggie, as far as I know, as similar to the Australian winters, during the day with the sun out, and of course for us it's our dry season, so there's no rain. I'm just checking to see again if I can't locate these dwarf mongoose for you. I don't want to travel too far before I've answered your question, Maggie. During the day, the sun is out because it's not cloudy, so even though it's not as warm as it is during summer, it's warm enough to create that warm air rising and the thermals that they need to, in order to survive and find their food, as you said, by sight and by thermaling. So they definitely don't go hungry during the winter season. It's only on it's more the cold and cloudy days when it's a bit rainy, that the ground is a bit damp and it doesn't exude the same warmth. But even today, we'll probably start to see vultures in the next few hours as the ground heats up, because I can feel the temperature rising already. So they will be absolutely fine. It's just that they tend to be a bit more grounded in the damp weather. And of course, vultures can fly without. That thermaling for them is the best way of, or the most energy efficient way of searching for food. X-Ranger has said, imagine if every time we linked to it that had flown away, we got $1, and how rich we would be. Yes, I start trying to calculate for the next week or so just how much money we would be earning if we did that. It'd be hilarious to calculate. I would be a very wealthy woman, especially given the current exchange rate. I think that we would be raking the money in. It is one of just the joys of a live safari. It's live. So if it flies away. Trying to put something on camera with wings isn't always the easiest deal. It's the same with the bush babies, trying to catch them on camera. But in a way, I actually think that that adds to the whole experience. It's all real and raw. I'm just keeping an ear out on the Game Drive channel. We will be making our way back into that Birmingham Boy sighting, but it is going to take us a while. There are lots and lots of vehicles that are cycling through, and because it's a sighting that is on a main road, there's vehicles from all around coming to visit, and they're all having their chance to allow their guests to enjoy that Birmingham Boy sighting. walking carefully along this road. The leopards love this area. Ooh, wonderful question from Debbie. And in order to answer it, I'm actually going to get my phone out for Debbie's question. She said that she's asking about a post that I think Brent put up, but I've also got a picture of it on my phone. Let me just make sure. Sorry, my apologies for my lack of technical abilities. Debbie's actually asked about this little creature. Oh, it's better that way. Now that is a pseudo-scorpion. And to give you a sense of scale, that hand, that ring is my ring. So that's my middle finger there. That is where it was sitting between my two fingers. So you get a really nice idea of just how tiny this little creature was. I had such fun experimenting with Jerry's macro lens attached to my phone. Getting him in focus was something of a difficult exercise. Now, Debbie, this pseudo-scorpion, it's one of the first ones I've ever seen, or at least managed to get a photo of. And Steph said it was one of the biggest he's ever seen, just to give you an idea of how tiny they are. They don't have a tail. I know that's not as clear. They don't have a scorpion-like tail. But the reason they're known as pseudo-scorpions, they're amazing, actually. They're like the most incredible mixture between spiders and scorpions. There's venom within their pincers themselves, and not just venom in the pincers, they also have spinnerets, so they can produce silk. So they can embed their silk with venom in their ways of catching their prey. And while he was doing this, he was sort of spreading webbing all the way across my hands as he was walking across. Not dangerous to us. I mean, they really are not of any kind of threat. And it's such a small size. But definitely one of the most fascinating creatures I have encountered out here. They live on little mites, clothing moth larvae, anything like that they can catch that is small enough for them to consume. This particular guy was in the abdomen of a longhorn beetle, a much larger longhorn beetle, that was slowly dying, and it was busy collecting all of the mites that were on it. So that, Debbie, was the pseudo-scorpion. Such a brilliant little creature. The fascinating tiny things that we have out here. And I think I definitely should go the route of Brent in terms of investing in an iPad. I just want to show you. See if I got it in slow motion. I did get it in slow motion. Him moving. So you get a really nice perspective of the scale. Look at me with my slow motion videos. It's very out of focus though. There you can see 4 legs plus the pincers. And you really get a sense of just how tiny this little creature is. You can see how clear the prints and calluses, charming calluses, on my hands are. A combination of driving and using saws, pangas, hammers, and all kinds of things. There we go. Little video of the pseudo-scorpion. Now that bird that's calling has become my nemesis bird. Let's just listen for a second. Can you hear it calling? That is a southern boo-boo. Dave and I spotted it the last time. We didn't manage to get it on camera. Again, joys of live safaris. It's not the Cape turtle dove that's calling off behind it. It's the whistle. Southern boo-boo. One day we're going to get it on camera. They love these thick drainage line areas. That's where they like to hang out and spend a little bit of their time, or most of their time, in really, really thick vegetation, which is why I've named it my nemesis. I see him. Oh my goodness, how exciting. Dave. On the other side of the drainage line, there's a tree with sort of brownish seeds. He's on the tree to the right of that. He is There he is. Brilliant. Hey! So much for my nemesis bird. There we go. A southern boo-boo. And there you can see just why they are so difficult to manage to get on camera. Fluttering about in the thick vegetation. Might not be the best view in the world, but still counts as a victory. Yes, Dave, we managed it, finally. So exciting. I'm very chuffed. Brilliant stuff. Right, from the little things to some of the largest on our reserve, I think that Brent has managed to catch up once again with an elephant herd. So why don't you jump on the back with him?
Zoom in. We've got a squirrel alarm calling. Liam thought he just spotted a snake, so we're just trying to see.
It looks like feet, I don't know, what is it?
What? Where did you... It's a piece of a giant plated lizard. Where did you spot that? That's been eaten by something else, probably by a predatory bird. I wonder if that's what the squirrel was alarm calling at. Something was eating that giant plated lizard. We were hoping for leopard, but... Just have a quick look. The fact that that squirrel jumped across the ground means it could be a predatory bird, but this particular area is favored by quite a few different leopards that we've seen regularly. I see where that squirrel is actually looking. Seriously upset. Looking. So there's the squirrel. Oh, no. Yes, there he is. That little dot there. And he's looking down towards this drainage system, so we're going to do the same. He's seriously upset. Come on, Karula. So we're just going to concentrate and try to see what the squirrel's alarm calling at. Very upset. Pop our nose in here where we can see down into this little drainage system. The squirrel's looking into these thickets here. So, what I'm going to do is there's a little bit of high ground there. So while you're with me, I'm going to pop my head over the edge. Maybe there's a leopard there. The squirrel was looking down here. So it's going to be quite difficult to get a vehicle in there. So before we try bash and crash, I'm going to have a quick little poke into these thickets. Hear the squirrel getting louder and louder. Very upset. There is something here. Can't see anything. But that squirrel's not stopping. And the way it's calling, I don't think it's alarming at a snake. But maybe a leopard popped across there. I'm just going to check around a little bit, see if we can find some tracks. If we don't find any tracks, I'm going to take a more serious stroll into the bushes. So when we're looking for animals, all these little clues are what help us find them. Squirrels alarming, francolin alarming, impala, kudu, all the different animals will let you know if there's a predator around. Now, with a small animal like a squirrel, sometimes it can be a little bit difficult because being so small, so many different things will eat them. So birds, snakes, leopards. Look at that. What is that? That's hyena. I got very excited for a second there. It just looked like a leopard track. Now we're just going to pop onto the other side of this drainage line, see what's there, and while we do that, Jamie's got some birds that are doing some alarm calling.
And as with our kingfisher, they immediately stopped. The birds demonstrating an incredible sense of humour this morning. They stopped as Brent sent you back across to me. They were actually having a bit of an argument, these crested francolin, all calling at each other. Two of the males actually got involved in a brief scuffle before separating. Aww. Francolin. Oh, they might start calling again now that the others are calling. Let's just have a look at the group that's going to go across the road, because I think that they're going to call again. Come on. Come on. Oh, have a look at the spur on the back of the leg, if you can. Now they're going into the grass. I'll actually show you a picture in my book. Francolin, despite their sort of harmless-looking figure, are capable of inflicting fighting quite viciously between each other. And I'll show you a picture of exactly what that spur looks like. And that's what's given them the name, or why they are related to a group of birds known as the spur fowls. Let me try and find the good example here. All of them have them. This will actually be a fine example. It's not the one I was looking for, but nevertheless, we get the right idea. It's not the same bird that we've been looking at, but it does give a really nice, clear picture of what I mean when I say spur. They've got these extended toes at the back that are hardened and have claws on the end of them. And they use those, particularly the males, when in competition for access to the ladies. And some of the spur fowls even have, if we look up at, for example, this one, they even have more than one spur along the backs of the legs. Now, this is definitely not a bird that you will see here. This is localized endemic to Ethiopia, but it's all part of the same family, so it demonstrates exactly what I mean. It's a hardwood spur fowl, if you were interested. Not one that I've ever seen. Now, Ethiopia is definitely on my top of the, or one of the top of the list of places that I would love to go to see the bird life and the animal life there. Oh, there's some incredible stuff there. The Ethiopian red wolf would be an animal that I would be so excited to see. Now that, as far as I know, is the most endangered predator in Africa. And it is quite literally a wolf-like animal that lives on the tops of the mountain ranges up there in a very, very localized, isolated population. Francolin, fair enough, farewell. It's amazing, they love to chirp over me whenever I'm talking, but when I want to stop and look at them doing it, they all went quiet. I promise you, these animals definitely have a sense of irony. And a warm welcome to Nick in Nevada, who has been watching for the last week or so. And Nick, as a fairly new viewer, was very curious about why the animals don't run away from the vehicle. And Nick, we've got a nice example here of animals that are going to move away from us. It depends very much on the animal species concerned. So we've got a lovely herd of Nyala here. Now, this is an antelope species that likes to be out in the open. I'm sorry, doesn't like to be out in the open, but prefers thicker and denser vegetation. They're playing in the back there. This is the perfect weather to watch antelope play. Even in Nyala do it regularly. They bounce around. We had an incredible sighting. Sorry, Nick, I haven't forgotten you. But we had this incredible sighting with a young male that was basically doing an obstacle course, round and round in circles. I think it might even be the same young males that we're looking at now, because it's a very similar area. Go forward, maybe we can get a better view from there. Nick? So it depends very much on the animal. Now, the Nyala, as soon as they settled in a thicker vegetation area, they immediately relaxed with our presence. But for animals like our lions, our elephants, leopards, and so on, they have grown up with vehicles around them from the earliest age possible, and their mothers the same before them. Unfortunately, our Nyala are going off into behind the trees. But let's use the Birmingham boys from this morning as an example. They've grown up in a pride where they have seen vehicles throughout their lives. Now, the process of habituation is a long one. So wild animals are naturally afraid of the vehicle initially, which is why we've spoken before about that skittish leopard that hangs out around Buffelshoek Dam that clearly hasn't grown up here. He's a dispersal male. He's moved away from wherever he was born in search of fresh genetics to mate with and to pass on his genes. So that's very common, leopards moving about, and every now and again the Sabi Sands gets a leopard that is a truly wild leopard that has come from somewhere where they've hardly ever seen vehicles and cars. It's very easy if animals are habituated from the very beginning, and it's so important. It is an underestimated part of what we do, or the way in which it contributes to the conservation of these animals, because if these animals ran away from vehicles every time they were seen, tourists would not pay money to come here, lodges would not exist, and therefore conservation areas would actually really struggle to pay the bills that are required for keeping a wilderness area like this protected. Fencing, for example, anti-poaching patrols, research going into the impact of different man-made structures and so on. I mean, you get the idea as to why the financial support of tourism is so essential. And as a country, it is vital for our survival. So starting reserves that are starting up in a wilderness area where the animals are not so relaxed. With leopards and lions, what they have often done in the past, they don't need to do that anymore because we have plenty of relaxed leopards from birth. But what they used to do in the sort of 60s, 70s, is they would take an antelope, a dead antelope, and they would put it in a tree as bait, essentially. And they'd wait for the leopard to come and feed on it. Let's use a leopard for an example. And then what they'd do is they'd just park the car off as far as possible while still seeing the leopard feeding, and leave the vehicle, leave it with the radio on for days, and repeat that process for days and weeks and months until they got to the point where that animal started realizing that the vehicle was of absolutely no threat to them and allowed it to approach closely. And then from there, especially if you habituate a female, you have got future generations that will then be habituated by her behavior, because the cubs, the animals, the baby animals will learn from the behavior of their mothers. And if mom doesn't run away from this big scary thing, then they don't need to either. Now that's something that has happened many years ago in this area, which is why our animals are so relaxed. And it's such a pleasure because it means that we don't have any kind of major impact on their behavior. So the lions go about their daily business as they would regardless of whether or not we were there. Look at this beautiful Nyala bull. Wrong direction, buddy. They went that way. The ladies went south. You're going north. Not sure how clearly you can see it, but there's mud all over the top of his horns. What a beautiful animal. So what he's been doing is thrashing his head in a muddy pan. Nobody knows exactly why they do that. One of the theories is that it's to rub the scent glands between their eyes, around there, so the preorbital glands. Another theory is that it makes them look big and strong. And the more mud you pack on your horns, the bigger you look. Kudu do it as well. Wildebeest occasionally do it. Only ever the males. So it's probably a sort of a function of them competing for the attentions of the females and with each other for access to the females.
Beautiful predatory little bird. He could have flown. Oh, there he is. Look at that. Isn't that pretty? I'm not so sure. It's a sparrowhawk. Let me just get my camera out to get a closer look. Oh no, he is. He's just tucked up really nicely there. A little sparrowhawk. So that's not a raptor we see too often here. Sometimes also known as a shikra. So a little deceptor, feed off a lot of small rodents, but they're also specialist little bird hunters. Now you can have a look quite clearly. Unfortunately, I think if we go any closer, he's going to fly away. But you'll see very fine barring on his chest. Oh, he's gone. Well, there we go. Wasn't that nice? That could be a new bird species for quite a lot of you. And there we go, sparrowhawks. And it was Lucy who was looking for number 200. Let me see if I can find it here for you. So we saw a red eye, yellow legs, and that very fine barring on its chest. Very beautiful little bird, a little sparrowhawk or shikra. There we go, there's the immature. Male's got a slightly darker head than the female. There we go, flying from the top view, and there you can see their distribution through southern Africa. So we're just above Swaziland there. So really nice. Lucy, hopefully that's number 200 for you. Let me know if you do reach 200 on this sunrise safari. Otherwise, our work will be cut out for us on the sunset safari. Nearly landed on your head. What was it? I didn't even see. A woodpecker.
No, but there's a little dove there.
A little dove. There you go. Nearly landed on Wium's head. And look at that beautiful little emerald spotted wood dove. You can see those emerald spots glistening. And look at that, we found the nest. You can see that little tangle of grass. They are such pretty little birds. There we go. And there you see it is in a tree. James Richard is actually wondering, what is the best way when learning trees to look at? The leaves, the general size, the shape. Well, I'd say all of the above. I mean, here we go, is a nice little example of where we've got everything to look at. So this is a weeping wattle that's been fed off quite a bit by elephants. There we go. You can see the flowers, very distinct yellow flowers, and the very distinct bipinnate leaves. And also, if we go to the right slightly, Wium, and up, and zoom, and down a bit, into the weeping wattle, a little bit left. There we go. You can see the seeds as well. So there we go. Three very nice identifying. You can see last year's set of seeds on the left, this year's set of seeds on the right. And James, I'd say it's a culmination of everything, and also looking at what area you're in. Certain tree species are only going to grow here on the edge of a drainage system or a little dry riverbed. So here we're likely to get more jackalberries, and here's a very distinct tree that only really grows where there's good groundwater on the left here, and that is the acacia. The blackthorn, which is one of the acacia species. This is Acacia robusta. Very big white thorns. And of course, acacias, you can see it's got very similar bipinnate leaves to the whooping wattle, but of course you've got those large white thorns that sort of give it away. But also the leaves aren't as long. So the weeping wattle's got nice long leaves. Actually, I'll go get you a sample so you can have a look. So even though the leaf shape is very similar, what was that? Is it Franklin? Uh-huh. So even though the leaf shape is very similar, let's get an older leaf. Got to be careful I don't stab myself. What did I do for you guys? I'm just going to rush off quickly to the weeping wattle. There we go, I'm back. So there we go. So there we go. There's the weeping wattle, and there's the acacia. So even so, the little leaflets look very, very similar. The size of the leaf itself is massively different. Okay, so, and you can see the acacia's got a slightly more rounded point tip, where the weeping wattle's got a slightly more pointed tip. So they are quite little nuances, but I mean, you'd have to really know your trees if we just gave you these two leaves to separate the species. But anyway, I would say just general, you look at where they're growing, their general shape. So leadwoods are very, very distinct, and there's a beautiful one just through that gap there, Wium. You can see, there we go, you can see that sort of gnarled, almost bendy branches on them, and quite sparsely leaved compared to other species. Also, very distinct bark. Bark's always a great one to look at. And there's a little, there's a leadwood a bit closer, so we'll show you that one's bark. There we go. It's almost like crocodile scales. So there we go, you can see that leadwood bark. Very, very distinct. So as I was saying, it's a combination of lots of different things that help you identify trees. It's a difficult one for me to explain, because with most trees, it's sort of second nature. So since the age of about 4 years old, I've been taught trees by my father, and on long family car trips, basically, the game was, what tree is that? What tree is that? What tree is that? So it does help. So I think a lot of that stuff for me, I don't even go beyond and think about that. It's just sort of ingrained. So listening to those monkeys again, I think Taxon might be right. I think that I have seen those lions, but it's always worth going back and having a look in that area. So SafariDean is wondering whether any of the trees here have built up a defense against termites. Most definitely, there's quite a few species that are completely termite resistant, and here's one right here. This one is termite resistant due to its poisonous latex. Let me just get a little bit closer. So this is actually a baby Timboety. This one here, and there's a slightly old one through there. You can see as they get older, the bark changes from that smooth white to quite a broken up, not quite as scaly as the leadwood, so the little pieces of bark are much smaller. But if we grab a leaf, look at that. Now, you don't want to get that on your skin. I'll put it on the dash for you, Jim. Now, you don't want to get that on your skin. That is highly noxious. Now, you can dab that on warts, and it'll actually burn them off. So certain animal species self-medicate by eating Timboety. It purges their system. So I'm just listening to those monkeys again. Yeah, they do sound like that, the lions. But who knows, maybe they spotted a leopard on the other side of the lion, so we'll keep slowly moving our way towards there.
I've been listening out for those monkey alarm calls and trying to see if they are in fact shouting at the lions. Haven't been able to see them from here, but that doesn't mean that they're not. Nevertheless, wonderful that we managed to squeeze our way into the sighting. We're not going to be able to stay right up until the end of the sunrise safari, but just look at this. A glorious sight in the morning sun is the one that is lying down closest to us with his belly showing. That is, I think it's Birmingham boy number 3. Now, we've discussed a little bit about what that mark is around his stomach and whether or not, initially I thought it was an injury. I thought it was a bruise. But we've come to the conclusion that it's probably some kind of skin disease. An infestation of a mite or a parasite, or possibly even a fungal infection on the skin. Hold on 1 second. Sorry, Mike, go ahead. Copy that, thanks, Mike. Brent's following up on those. Copy that, thanks. Brent did hear them, so he is in the area following up. Just letting everybody know they... Oh, hold on 1 moment. Brent's chatting to me now. Go ahead. Brent, it actually does seem like they are they were alarm calling from the Leadwood side, close to where that sort of tributary joins the Mawati. So I'm not sure that it was the lions. There's 3 stations here, but one just pulling out, so you can bypass. Okay, copy, that's perfect. Yeah, you'll miss us. We're right at the junction. One of them up and moving to probably a better spot for shade. There's our dirty gentleman scratching his ear at the back. I was busy just talking about the mark that's on the belly of this lion closest to us and discussing the possibility that it is a skin disease rather than an injury, which I think seems to be more likely. Either way, when we compare them to the 5 males that first made their appearance on Juma all that time ago with Hayden and Peter on Big Cat Week when they were much younger, they're definitely no longer the young, innocent and uninitiated males that they once were, covered in scars and wounds, evidence of their dominance in this particular area. The discussion that we were just having over the Game Drive channel concerned the monkey's alarm calling. And we were just trying to work out if it is in fact them shouting at the lions or whether or not there is another reason for the commotion. The way that this area is positioned and the way that the sighting is positioned makes me think that it's unlikely that it was the lions that they were calling or alarm calling at. And this is an exciting prospect for this afternoon's sunset safari because it does mean that they will most likely stick around here. There's plenty of water, there's lots of shade for them. And with full bellies and the sun coming out and the temperature heating up, they're not going to go wandering off too far. Something we've discussed a lot as well, just talking about the Birmingham boys and their takeover, is whether or not when a takeover like this occurs, their testosterone levels increase. And that we've suggested is maybe the reason why they have grown as they have and why their manes have filled out as they have. I mean, that would have happened anyway, of course, as the natural aging process occurs. But it would be very interesting. I'm going to look in and see if I can find any research into the way in which the testosterone levels of these lions must go. It must go up when they start a takeover, as they have now completed. And just an update for those of you who are long-term viewers and want to know about the Matimba male. Unfortunately, he still hasn't been seen as far as I've heard so far. There was a fight between the Mjingilan males and the Matimba males, and it seems as though one of the Matimba males has gone missing and may have been quite seriously injured. But as soon as we find anything out about that particular situation, I promise you that we will update you. And speaking about possible injuries, and of course we have seen the male lion that was limping incredibly this morning, Groove Tastical was wondering whether or not there are any predators that would go after an injured lion. Their biggest threat is going to be another male lion. Now, with this coalition, they will most likely be safe from that kind of intrusion unless they are far separated from the rest of the males within it. But their biggest threat out here is another coalition of males. And as soon as you've got a 2 against 1 or 3 against 1 scenario, particularly with an injury involved, then that lion automatically is on the back foot, so to speak. So yes, there are predators that will go after them. Something like a spotted hyena or even a group of spotted hyenas. Oh, here comes the male that went for a brief drink. He's now returning to the shade. Now that surely is Blondie. Am I mistaken about that? I'm pretty sure that it is. His mane definitely looks fuller, but they've all grown so much that I'm still learning the different marks and scars that identify the different... I'm still learning to re-identify the Birmingham boys. It's been such a while since I've seen them all together. So those of you who are more familiar with them, please just let me know which one you think has just arrived. It's definitely the lion with the fullest looking belly. No, it's not Blondie. My mistake, sorry. I think I'm wrong about that. But yes, in terms of threats to an injured lion, I actually think that was number 3. Although originally I thought that number 3 had the belly rash, but I might have got that mixed up with Birmingham Boy number 4. I think we need better names. I think we need to have a conversation as guides and just find some names that are not numbers, get to know their personalities a little bit, now that we're seeing them more regularly. And back to the conversation about an injured lion and the possible predators. A male lion, even with a serious injury, is still a tremendously powerful animal. So the chances of a spotted hyena, even a large number of spotted hyenas attacking them, is fairly slim. It does happen though. So occasionally, if there's a large enough group of hyena together that have found an injured lion, they may attack them. With the females, with an injured female, it's slightly more likely that a spotted hyena clan could be a threat. Awesome. And just like that, we have the sighting all to ourselves. And I think actually we're going to be able to stay for the rest of the morning until the end of the sunrise safari. A little bit of patience goes a long way out here. And we've got this beautiful sighting all to ourselves. What I do want to just do quickly is switch onto the northern channel. So the sighting's being run on different game drive channels, and just check in with any of Taxon or any of the other vehicles to see if they want to join us. Stations, I'm now on lock. The only vehicle on lock with these Birmingham Mangala, still Lalapanzi, same position at Twin Dams Junction, Gowrie, Main. And if anyone wants to come and join. Let's do a little bit of a reconnoiter, see if we can't find a nice different view, although this is a perfect setting with the sun coming out and the morning looking glorious. But now we don't have to worry about blocking anybody else's view. While we pass quite close to this lion with the bulging stomach, Noctua was wondering, hello boy, whether or not it's possible that this gentleman with the stomach rash, and it definitely looks like a stomach rash now looking at it from this angle, whether or not it's possible he has a bloated stomach, since he looks a little bit different from the others with their full bellies. It's possible, Noctua, but unlikely. I think it's more just that he maybe gorged himself at a slightly different time, so he's carrying it in a different part of his stomach. It hasn't quite made its way straight through the intestines just yet. I don't think his stomach is more bloated than normal. But that being said, without actual physical examination of him, something that I think he might object to, especially in his sleepy state, I don't think he'd appreciate it. Without actually examining him, I don't know for 100% certain that that's not the case. I think, however, it is just a belly full of buffalo that he's carrying a little bit higher than the other two. Food babies is what they're all carrying at the moment. He's also very dirty. He's also covered in buffalo stomach contents. What's going to be amazing, I mean, hopefully they stick around with us for the next few days and stay in the area. And it's going to be amazing to watch the way in which those stomachs deflate. By tomorrow, they'll be almost flat. And by the next day, they will have regained their svelte figures. There's nothing quite like the digestive speed of a predator and the way in which they process that food. when you see them with full bellies like this, it's hard to imagine just how rapidly that's going to disperse and be digested and reduced to waste products. Very interesting. And it was one of the reasons why lions generally will hunt and kill, if they can, every 3 or 4 days. The Birmingham boys, of course, have been known to be incredible opportunists. So even with full bellies, if a buffalo herd decided to wander through this area, there is still the possibility that they will take a chance and go and take the opportunity to hunt them. All animals, all predators out here are opportunists like that. So even at their fullest, there's a chance that they will have a go at a meal if the opportunity presents itself. What also always astounds me in lion sightings like this is the speed at which a lion can go from sleeping like they are to being alert once again. Now, Mobile Paddy, just speaking about how deeply they are asleep, you were wondering if lions have vivid dreams, because your dog at home very often runs in its sleep, as does mine, actually. Mine also whimpers. My dog actually whimpers and cries and whines and sometimes barks in her sleep and wakes herself up. Lions do. Oh, hold on 1 second. Sorry, alarm calls again. Oh, I thought I heard alarm calls. False alarm. So Mobile Paddy, yes, I have seen lions have dreams. I've seen them twitch in their sleep. I'd love to know what they dream about. And that, of course, we will never know, so that's entirely up to you what you would suggest they might dream about. I'd love to actually hear your suggestions about what lions will dream about. I think most of us immediately think about them hunting. Maybe they have nightmares about other lions coming into their territories. Maybe they dream of a never-ending buffet supply of buffalo. Possibly even a fillet steak might enter into their dreams. But I have seen them twitch. I have seen them run in their sleep. They also snore. I have heard them snoring before. Particularly a sighting that I had with the timber males before the Birmingham started their takeover, where the two of them were lying up on Arethusa, snoring away happily. So not only do lions dream, but they also snore. Now let's hear what suggestions you might have for lion dreams. And they spend such a long time, or such a huge part of their lives, catnapping. That being said, I think that their dream cycles are slightly shorter. I don't know too much about the sleep cycles of lions. But as with all animals out here, they can't really spend too much time in the deepest of sleeps. They probably, most of the time, they are just dozing. Louis the lion has passed on a very sweet suggestion as to what the Birmingham boys might be dreaming about. Louis, I don't think they're dreaming of my arrival. Maybe Dave's. I've noticed a connection between Dave and the Birmingham boys. Every time they get up and walk past, they seem to look deep into Dave's eyes, as they do, which I think has been quite an experience for Dave over the past few weeks since he joined the WildEarth team. So, Louis, I don't think it's me. Maybe they dream of you, Dave. It's up to you to decide what context they dream about you in. They do, of course, look at Dave because he's higher than me. Here's a complex question that's come through from Steve. Whilst their eyes are firmly shut, Steve was wondering about the pupils of lions compared to domestic cats, and has, speaking about that, the eye contact that's been made with our cameraman fairly regularly, and with us as well. And Steve's saying that the eyes of lions are different to those of the shape of the domestic cats, and whether or not there is a specific reason for it. Both are or can be relatively nocturnal. I mean, that immediately goes to the shape of the eye, and the position of the eye tells you a lot about the way in which an animal operates. So obviously the lion's pupils very much adapted for being able to expand to allow the largest amount of ambient light into the back of the retina. Oh, it's a really good question, Steve. I'm just trying to think my way through this as to why they might be different from domestic cats. The one aspect of it that I will put forward as a suggestion is that we have played a tremendous role in the evolution of domestic cats. We are responsible for the form that they are in now, as a form of artificial selection and artificial evolution. We've bred them and maintained them in a way that has suited us. Maybe that played or had an impact on the shape of their pupils. It's possible. Maybe the way in which they now, or the lifestyles that they now lead, whether it be as strays working around people, or whether it be as house pets. Really good question, Steve. Not sure. I think there's a different number of possible answers. The lions, of course, whilst they are part of the Felidae family, or order almost, no, Felidae family, sorry, the carnivora order, they are totally in a separate genus and species. So you might find that the Panthera genus have evolved differently, and I bet if we had a look at cheetah's pupils, they would probably act differently to those of lions as well. So a cheetah not falling into the Panthera grouping of large cats, but still, and also a diurnal predator, you'd probably find that their pupils are a completely different shape. Steve, I'll have a good think about that and see if I can come up with different answers. Julianne has suggested, while we watch our dreaming lions, that maybe the lions dream about driving around this wonderful property and watching humans sleep all day. It's also a very good suggestion. I'm going to try and show you something. I'm not quite sure how we're going to go about this because I don't want to disturb them. Well done, Dave. We've got some visitors on my book box. Sorry, flies, to interrupt you. A bit voyeuristic of us, but there you go. Some mating flies that have come from the lions and joined onto us, and they're actually quite beautiful for flies. Greenish color with large red compound eyes. I don't know which species this is, but it is an interesting one, and I'm fairly certain that these guys have joined us from this lion sighting. Perhaps decided that the privacy of the vehicle was more appropriate for their current activity than perhaps the lion's skin was. And there you go. Some flies have decided to join us. Oh, now I can smell the lions. Sensational, who has stuck with us for this morning's drive. Sensational saying that if she did a live game drive from where they live, that perhaps it would be a little bit more boring than ours, maybe the odd dog or cat. Well, I mean, we always encourage people to apply some of what we've mentioned and talked about in these safaris to their everyday lives. And it's amazing what natural wonders you can find in different areas. One of my dreams is to be able to travel at some point and to get to see wildlife and vegetation and trees in a totally different area to the one that I am so accustomed to. The nice thing about being a safari guide is that you always have new guests, and the same applies for us as presenters, new guests and new viewers, and every time a viewer finds something remarkable or interesting or beautiful, you look at it with fresh eyes almost. I can't count the number of times that I have sat with sleeping lions before. And yet every sighting is different because the questions that come through and the comments that come through from you guys get us talking about a completely different train of thought to the one we've chatted about before. That is the nice thing about being a guide. That constant re-evaluating of the world around you with fresh and open eyes. It's also one of the reasons why I always force myself to stop and look at the sunset and not take it for granted. We went through a period where the lions sort of stood within us. The other lodges definitely had an opportunity to see them. Sorry about that, Matt. We just had a brief and mysterious signal drop. I don't know. You know, we're sitting right underneath a power line. I wonder whether or not that plays some kind of role. With my very limited understanding of the way such things work, we are sitting right underneath it, which might explain why we suddenly experienced a mysterious drop in signal.
Tribulus. Now, when it was very, very dry, and before the rain came, it's not common to see elephants eating devil thorns, but they were eating them because there was a lack of other food around. Now, they have a wonderful little, well, not so wonderful if you're barefoot, seed. That is actually 3 seeds stuck together, and each of them got a spike on them. And the last time I checked, there were no thorns here, but let's have a look now. So, what I do, and so it's been a few days and they do develop quite quickly, so I'm just gently touching them, trying to see if I can feel a thorn yet. I'll show you, it doesn't look like it, not quite yet, so we're going to have to keep checking that when those thorns come out. So I have told you before, but really interesting, it's one of the only little pretty wildflowers I know of that's been used as a murder weapon. So themselves are not noxious and are even eaten in times of famine in places like Nigeria and the far northwest Africa. But how they're used is a murder weapon. Those tiny little thorns, that tri-pronged seed I was telling you about, is soaked in poison such as cyanide or something like that, and then the thorns are laid outside of the door of the intended victim. So as walks outside to have a stretch in the morning, stands on a thorn, ow, thinks nothing of it, but are poisoned like that. And there's actually been 12 cases of this reported. So apparently those gremlins bred at a very quick rate with Jamie, so you are going to be stuck with for a bit longer. So Diana in England is asking, do the thorns on an acacia mostly point downwards to try keep browsing animals off? Not really, Diana, and it also depends on the acacia species. You must remember there are lots of them. On that blackthorn, that one we were looking earlier with those very big white thorns, actually sort of whirled around. They point in all directions. But certain animals have developed ways to get around that. Giraffe and elephant in particular, their mouths are so tough, it doesn't actually make a difference to them. They'll munch through the thorns. But kudu will be dainty enough to feed in between. I'm trying to find you an acacia now. This is possibly the worst place to look for acacias on Juma. But there should be one up ahead. Oh, look at that. We might not find an acacia in time, but we will find a lovely big group of Nyala. All the ladies and sub-adults. So early morning, they sometimes come out into the clearings to feed, and now as it gets a little bit later, they're going to move back towards the thickets. And notice how they walk. It almost looks like they're on tiptoes. So you'll find a lot of your animals that spend quite a lot of time in in thickets and in thick bush will walk like that. And particularly when it's even thicker bush, they'll put their foot almost, their back foot almost exactly where their front foot has stepped. There's a little boy. You can just see his horns popping up. And they are mostly browsers, so when we do see them on the clearings, they're often feeding off the little shoots of trees that are just sparking up. But preferably they do like an acacia. And then back to the left, Wium, there's an acacia for you. And Diana, there we go. We did find an acacia with the Nyala. And as you can see, those thorns are not generally pointed down, but rather whirled around in lots of different directions. So, thanks for joining us. Hopefully Jamie's gremlins are all purged by the sunset safari, and we'll have lots to show you. It's been wonderful. The sunset safari will be starting 5 minutes early today, and we'll be starting with a school show. So don't forget to join us for wonderful animals and informative facts.